So the next speaker, Anjuan Simmons, I've actually seen him give a very similar talk before, and I thought it was so important that I made sure he came and give this talk for us tonight. He's working on software. He's relevant, working on a construction software startup down in Texas. He's going to tell us a little bit about lending privilege. Take it away, Anjuan.
Thank you. I want to talk about a topic that can be exhausting, and that's diversity, because it's hard to know how can I make a difference. Well, I want everyone in here to know that we all have privilege, and you can lend it to marginalized groups in technology. Because it's easy to think that the big companies out there who signed the Tech Inclusion Pledge that was released a few weeks ago by the White House, to let them do the heavy lifting. But there's no evidence that big companies can do anything about diversity. It's going to take a grassroots effort by all of us if we want to make a positive change. And one change that I like to see made is a change from the word diversity to inclusion, because inclusion has business benefits. Studies have shown that inclusive teams are innovative teams. When we involve multiple points of views, we get better solutions. And I can send you the research for this if you at me on Twitter. But the truth is that marginalization is on the march. You may be the next person who can benefit from a more inclusive technology industry. So we should all pitch our hats into the ring to make technology more inclusive and more meritocracy. Now, what is privilege? Privilege is access to benefits based on traits you possess. And those benefits could be education, could be jobs, could be other types of privileges. And the first type of privilege is birth privilege. And those are things like parental, racial, gendered, and other types of privilege that you're born with, that you don't really choose for yourself. But the next type of privilege is selected privilege. And those are things like where you go to school and your gender identity, your religion, things that you choose as you grow. Now, it's human nature to share privilege with people like us, but it's far more powerful to lend privilege to people who lack privilege. Now, I'm going to use three examples through these three ladies who are some of the people you probably work with to explain three types of privilege lending. Now, the first type of privilege lending is credibility lending, and that's lending visibility to people who lack privilege in technology. You know, LGBT people often feel marginalized in technology because of the heteronormative nature of the industry, but I think that lending credibility can help this. For example, DeRay McKesson, the activist, appeared on the Colbert Show, and Colbert switched chairs with DeRay, giving him the platform of the Colbert Show, which raised his profile, a great example of credibility lending. Now, consider B, who developed the killer feature in your last software release. Why don't you co-present that feature with her in front of your board so that you can raise her profile in your company? That's an example of credibility lending. The next type is access lending. Access lending provides entry for people who lack privilege. Often women in technology feel that because they lack male privilege, that they experience sexism and often can't fully take part in technology. Well, Tracy Chow, who is an activist for equality in technology, told the story of how when she was a Stanford CS student, her professor made her a TA. And she saw that a lot of the male students who said that they were great programmers really weren't that hot. And so she got access to that. And this can work for you. For example, look at Elle. Elle implemented your container strategy. So why not lend her access by sending her to that Docker conference that always asks you to speak, and let her see that she too has a place in technology. Expertise lending is providing a voice to people who lack a voice in technology. You know, people of color, we often feel that we don't have a voice in technology because we lack the racial privilege that a lot of technology leaders have. Well, our first lady at South by Southwest, we have a great example of this type of lending. She said that if you have a voice at the table, look around the table and see, are there other voices that don't sound like yours? So consider M, who is one of your best developers. Why not let her be a lead on your team? Let her lead and lend her voice to your project. Now, in a little less than 5 minutes, I've explained 3 types of privileged lending, and I really hope that you've thought of others as I've been talking. Because if we really want change, we can let big technology companies play the numbers game, but if we want people of color, LGBT people, and women to not just get into technology, but to stay and get promoted, then you all have a role to play by lending your privilege. Thank you.